What's up, YouTube? We're here with my mod list and a load order review video. Um, I spent a lot of time yesterday, about like 4 to 5 hours, trying to record and edit using OBS and game streaming with Windows 10, and the video got corrupted after 4.5 hours of editing, and I got really upset, so I was done. I wasn't streaming the rest of that day. I couldn't do it. I was done with the day. So we're just going to do as we usually do, where I'm streaming on Mixer, and we're going to go ahead and go over the mod list. I'm just going to tell you what the mods do. I'm not going to give you my overall opinion on what they do, because the mod list video took like an hour to just go over the mods. I don't want it to be super crazy long. But this is my Skyrim Special Edition mod list. It focuses on the look, the immersion, and the combat of Skyrim. Talk about each mod, what they do. And we're just going to go through, down through my load order, so from top to bottom, so that way you'll know where to put it in your load order. I suggest you do it this way. I've been messing with this mod list for a long time, and this is the best load order that works for me, at least. So I suggest you do it this way. You don't have to, but I highly suggest it. So first off, we got the unofficial Skyrim Special Edition patch. The USEP patch just fixes tons of different bugs within vanilla Skyrim that messes up the game. That's all that does. Campfire complete camping system. This allows you to do a camping type thing within the game, making campfires, setting up tents, and the use for this is to kind of just create immersion, because if you're traveling from Riften all the way to Solitude, it doesn't seem real, you know? It's more for to get more involved into the game, to feel like you're really in the game, where you stop and camp, and there is a leveling system within it, a perk system, to specifically only for, you know, increasing campfires, bettering campfires and everything. You need this if you're going to be using Frostfall. They're kind of a collaborative mod system, where Frostfall enables a hypothermia within the game, where you can get cold, and the more cold you get, the more debuffs you get on yourself, to the point where you're freezing to death and you can die if you set it to that, or you'll get picked up by a random caravan and they'll take a lot of your money and set you off in an inn or somewhere. So you can customize these however you want. We have Hunterborn, which changes the hunting system within the game. Instead of just going into the inventory of a dead animal and picking up their pelt and everything, you have to dress the animal, then skin it, harvest ingredients, and butcher the meat. There's a bunch of new ingredients that are put into the game with this mod, and they're all very balanced. They're not crazy. This creates a more immersive feel within the game, because instead of just like killing a bunch of wolves and then picking up their pelt and then going on your day, you have to take the time to actually dress the carcass and everything. It increases the prices of pelts as well. You also have a leveling system with that, where you can't adjust it at all. It's just on your experience of how many pelts you skin and everything. The more you do, the better quality of the pelts you'll get from that specific animal, I believe. We have rebalanced encounter zones. Most of the areas within Skyrim, if you're a level 10, a level 3 enemy will spawn to fight you. This changes it so that way if you're level 10, most of the areas in Skyrim will spawn a level 9 enemy to fight you. That way you're fighting higher level enemies more often, making the game harder, just in general, for most areas. Instead of populating more enemies, this is a much easier way to increase the difficulty of the game. Rebalanced level list. This allows all the DLC weapons and armor to be put into the loot pools of everywhere. It changes it so that way if you're in Dwarven Ruins, you're going to find more Dwarven stuff and everything. So depending on the area you're in, you're going to find more common weapons and armor and gear towards that area. It's not going to just be you running around and you continuously find... if you're going into Orc strongholds, you're going to find Orc gear, not a bunch of, you know, Elven stuff. wherever you're at is generally the area you want to find for that type of gear. That's what this changes. Dynamic dungeon loot. It creates a different looting system within the game, where you have rarities, which is uncommon, common, rare, very rare, legendary, and exotic. Now, exotic is a brand new type of thing that this mod brings in. It brings in 16 exotic gear items into the game. And legendary items are Stalrim, Ebony, Stalrim, Daedric, and Dragonbone items. Now, there's a 3% chance for those items to drop. And then if they do drop, they have a 25% chance to turn into an exotic item. And these exotic items are pretty awesome. Here's a few that are listed. Blaze, Sapphire, Mercy, Helm of Instinct, Castle Forge, Steel Daggers. These are pretty rare to find, but when you do find one, they're pretty awesome. They're not something that you're just like, oh, I'll get rid of it. Even if you're like a two-handed character, you might think to like rebalance yourself to start using Blaze, which is a glass sword, to start using that in one-handed and everything, just because they're pretty great. This makes it so that way whenever you're leveling up, you're not finding a bunch of hide armor gear constantly in chests. As you level up, you're going to find more higher rarity items. Imperious Races of Skyrim changes all the races and their powers. Each race gets 3 passive effects, and you'll get a quest that you have to use your passive effects or some version of that to get your power that you can activate. As an example, the orcs stats are 20% stronger weapon and armor stats, but 20% weaker enchantment stats. Whenever you enter combat, you'll have 300% increased regeneration of your magicka and stamina, but after 20 seconds, it'll go back down to the normal rate of regeneration. Whenever you jump and land onto the ground, you'll stun and throw enemies to the ground. And your power is randomly berserk. It's not something that you activate, it just activates randomly whenever you're in combat. To get your power, you have to stun 150 enemies with your jump stun, and then you'll get the power, and then whenever you're in combat, you'll randomly get Berserk, which is double your damage and half amount of damage taken. It's pretty awesome. Each race has a different change to it to make it seem more race-specific, and the races will actually matter now depending on what type of build you want to do. So this is a great thing to do. Apocalypse Magic Skyrim adds in tons of different types of spells, 31 per school. A lot of them are different. Creates a different type of way to play the game if you're being a mage. Instead of just using the Destructions tree to get a bunch of fireballs, you can do a bunch of different types of styles to fight, creating a whole new aspect of magic fighting gameplay within Skyrim. Ordinator Perks of Skyrim changes every single perk tree within the game, giving a whole bunch of different perks. So that way, instead of just getting the first perk of every tree going into archery, and then you just get the first perk 5 times to get 100% more damage, you can actually make builds. It's more of an RPG type game where you have to actually think about your type of build that you want to do, such as tree, a war axe tree, a mace tree, and a dagger tree, and a dual wield tree. You could get 2 daggers, and there's this one perk where you hit an enemy and they'll fucking thing. There's this one perk where you'll hit an enemy, and they'll bleed for a certain amount of damage, and it'll stack. And then if you're using 2 daggers, you can go into the dual wield tree and then go both into the dual wield and in the dagger tree and do some serious damage. Or you can go into two-handed, where one of the perks later on in the tree where you have a 10% chance for your swing to activate a skill where your next swings for the next 5 seconds are 175% faster. So you're just a whirlwind of swings. It's pretty great. destruction tree, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there instead of just increasing the damage and the decrease of cost. There's a bunch of different effects, like whenever you hit an enemy with fire, they'll leave a little pole of fire on the ground that they stand on, and they'll take damage after standing in it for 3 seconds. You know, shock, where eventually you get this thing where you have a chance to lift the enemy off the ground, so it technically give you time to keep walking backwards to fight them. Bunch of stuff that Ordinator changes. It's pretty awesome. We got Wildcat Combat of Skyrim, changes the combat within the game, allowing injuries and the stagger within the game, which you can inflict on NPCs and they can inflict on you. Where you reach a certain amount of health, you can get hit with an injury, which will change the way you have to fight. If you're a mage and you get a head injury, you're going to lose all your magicka, so you're going to want to instantly see that head injury and start to try and heal yourself with restoration or use potions, because otherwise you're going to lose all your magicka, and that's your whole way of fighting. Increases the combat AI by a little bit, just letting them know like how to, if you get an injury, they'll go in and try to hit you harder. Any type of swing with melee weapons, such as one-handed and two-handed, which by like a normal swing, not a power attack, will cost stamina. A one-handed weapon will cost 5 stamina. A two-handed weapon will cost 10 stamina with a regular swing. Power attacks cost a lot more stamina. And then you see the damage ratings now, which have been changed from normal. Mortal Enemies SE changes combat within Skyrim some more. The main things from this that are changing is that now whenever you swing a weapon, your range is slightly decreased, because within vanilla Skyrim, your weapon will stick out farther than what it's supposed to, actually. So you can hit enemies farther from wherever your weapon is actually swinging into, if that makes sense. As an example, if you're using a two-handed battle axe and you swing at an enemy, you can hit them a foot in front of where your blade is hitting with your two-handed battle axe and do damage in vanilla. With this, it changes it so that you actually have to hit the enemy with the blade to be able to do damage. You have to hit it with the weapon. You can't just like have this extra length for no reason. Attacking commitment, where if you start to swing, you can't do a 180 in the middle of the swing to turn around and correct your swing, and that's the same with NPCs, which is a great thing. So you have to pay attention to your swinging, your attacks. Depending on what type of weapon you have, you're slowed down, or while blocking, you're faster than vanilla, which is great because you're mega slow in vanilla. One-handed and two-handed, you're slower than vanilla. Two-handed, extra slow compared to one-handed. We have, and one of the recommended mods is Smilodon or Wildcat. We have Wildcat in the Ultimate Dodge mod, which we don't have because we don't need, because another mod that we have gets rid of that. 50% more perks, so every other level you get an extra perk. There's a lot more perks within the game because of Ordinator, so extra perk points are kind of great. There is another one where you get double the perk points out there. I thought this was more appropriate, where you only get one extra every other perk, every other level. This is perk points at skill levels 50, 75, and 100. If you spend a lot of time getting your skills up to 50, 75, or 100, I think you should be rewarded, and this mod does exactly that. Once you get to 50, you'll get a perk point. Once you get to 75, you'll get a perk point. Once you get to 100, you'll get a perk point. Pretty simple, and I think that's pretty reasonable to have. Werewolf perks expanded. This changes the werewolf perks within the game, obviously, to make it so that they're actually useful. We don't have a vampire mod like this because I think the Vampire Lord tree is pretty fine. I think it's pretty good already. Werewolf vanilla werewolf perk tree was kind of lacking, so I got this to make it so that it's actually better. Here's all the things that it changes. If you want a more in-depth thing, go ahead and check out the check it out at the Bethesda.net or the Nexus. Summer Mist enchantments adds in, to be exact. that are pretty balanced and will change the way you fight. As an example, there's one enchantment where you hit an enemy and it'll drop their armor rating by 80, which you can increase that power of that enchantment by getting better enchantment tree and everything. So that way, you know, if you're using that, you want to use it against enemies that will have actually armor and stuff like that. You can change your entire gameplay. There's a whole bunch of them. With this, there's not the typical same, you know, standard build that you'll go through whenever you're going through the game. This changes it up a bit. We got Thunderchild, Epic Shouts, and other stuff. Can't remember the rest of the name. Adds in 31 new shouts. To get these shouts, you do not automatically get them whenever you load into the game with this mod on. You have to find the vanilla shouts of the game, and the vanilla shouts of the game, the words of those shouts, are used to create these new shouts. To start this mod, you have to complete not complete the main quest, but continue partially through the main quest to the point where you get the Horn of Jorgen Windcaller back to Arngeir, and then they'll do that shout thing where you're in the middle. And once they're completed with that, you'll have all 3 of the Unrelenting Force shouts. Then he'll give you the key because you'll be accepted as a Greybeard. Not as a Greybeard, but you'll be accepted by the Greybeards. And then with everything within the Hrothgar will be technically yours as well, so you can take whatever you want. They'll give you a key. You go to, from entering Hrothgar, you go all the way to the back, then you stop before you enter out into the courtyard. You go to the right, all the way to the right, and there will be a door there leading you to the library. To start learning the shouts, you'll have to go to the Statue of Kine in there and start meditating, where you have to lose stamina as you meditate, and you want to stop meditating once you get below 20% stamina, and you'll learn all the words that you can from whatever shouts that you have. Another thing that this thing adds in is to the don't know exactly the word for it, but kind of like prayer to Kine, where you do certain actions within the game and it'll increase the power of your shouts up to 200%. And there are 5 repeatable ones, and there are a few ones that are like you do once and you'll get a certain percentage amount of them. Which are the easiest is just donating gold to Arngeir, which is donating 1,000 gold. And it'll increase the power of your shout by 0.5%. And then another one is once a day you can shout to the heavens. Once a day you can shout to the heavens, and it'll increase your power of your shout by 0.5%. Which is pretty easy. If you wanted to do it, you could actually just wait, 24 hours every day and get your shout up to 200% if you wanted. Super easy. To learn the second word of shouts and the third word of shouts, you have to increase the power of your shout up to a certain percentage, and then you'll get a cue to go back to Hrothgar to meditate again. We got Sky HUD Dissonance preset. What this does, it gives you the Oblivion style HUD where the compass is on the bottom, and the health, magicka, and stamina are off to the left. And the cursor is just a dot, and your sneak symbol is down at the bottom just above your compass. I like the dot because that way, if I were ever to use scope bows, I could actually see the scopes of the bow instead of the sneak symbol over covering them. We got rename shouts. Renames all the shouts within the game to have shout in front of it, so that way whenever you have a bunch of shouts in your list of your quick item bar, you can find them there instead of having to scroll through the entire thing to find which one you specifically want. This one glitches a little bit at times where it doesn't name some of the shouts with shout in front of it, but I still like it because it does do most of them. Renamed arrows and bolts does the same thing as renamed shouts. This one works for every arrow and bolt, though. I've never had any problems with this. So that way all of your arrows and your bolts are at the top of your weapons list, so that way they're not strewn all about. Love that. Improved sleep and wait menu. You can wait up to an entire week now with your wait menu instead of having to wait 24 hours, stop, and then wait 24 more hours to reset merchant's inventory. You can just wait 48 hours in total, and that'll be done. And if you want to reset an area's spawn area, you can wait a week and then 3 more days, and you'll be done. It's pretty awesome. Parthenax Dilemma. In the vanilla game, the blades will ask you to kill Parthenax, but if you do that, you won't be able to side with Parthenax and get an increased version of Unrelenting Force or Fire Breath or Frost Breath. What this does, it allows you to spare Parthenax and convince the blades to not be mad at you, so you can ally yourself with the blades and keep Parthenax alive. So you can do exactly what you want, and that's what everyone wants to do. Boss Encounters of Skyrim adds in bounties where you can go fight these mini-bosses within Skyrim, get some loot, and have a pretty crazy fights. They're pretty unique guys within the game. The bosses so far are over on the right side. There's going to be more bosses added in as time goes. You level up, you'll be able to fight the Azlak the Dragon Knight and his gigantic dragon. I'm pretty excited to do that. I don't know what level that'll be unlocked, but I'm excited to see it. Open Civil War. This adds the cut content from the vanilla Skyrim, where you would have to take every single hold to complete the Civil War. So instead of just fighting in Whiterun or fighting in, Whiterun or defending Whiterun, you have to fight or defend each and every hold, and they can be taken back from other places as you're in the Civil War. Which is pretty cool. Makes the Civil War actually extensive and lengthy, which it should be. It's a war. Merciless Civil War cleanup. As time goes by, after the Civil War is over, the debris and broken shit within the cities will be fixed, so that way it doesn't look really gross and ugly. There's nothing you have to do, it just fixes itself. Grassfield by Tamu. I've tried a bunch of different types of grass mods. I find this one to be the best. That doesn't hinder your FPS or the loading area within the game. Grass looks great, and the color... This is the more colors version, by the way. The grass looks great, and depending on your area, the colors will change because of the areas, Whiterun, the grass is more of a, a light brown, while over in Falkreath, it's going to be like a bright green, while up in Winterhold and all that area, there's not much grass at all. So it depends on the areas where you're at. I really like this. Forest of Skyrim adds in very dense forests to the game, so that way you're just not a bunch of mountains and plains. And it's not a randomly generated areas. These are all specific tree areas, so that way, trees don't randomly spawn in the plains of Whiterun and have a whole bunch of, trees there. This spawns trees where there should be trees at within the game. So, Falkreath, Riften, Markarth, all those areas over there, or Morthal rather, will all have a bunch of trees. Divine Texture Pack Trees changes the look of the trees, the skins of it, makes them look really good. Landscape fixes for grass mods. With grass mods, they'll spawn grass within areas where there shouldn't be grass, such as the picture resembles. This fixes that so that it doesn't happen, which does increase your FPS a little bit, because it'll clash with other things and make your game crash. So if you have a grass mod, you need this mod, I suggest, because it'll help. We have Divine Interiors Darkness Edition. Inside areas are very dark now. You don't have lighting coming out from absolutely nowhere. You have to have a torch, a candle, a chandelier, or something like that to create light. If you don't, it's going to be very dark, which creates mystery within the game. Even though you've played through the game a bunch of times. Going into new areas with this darkness mod, it's pretty spooky because you have to be looking around every corner to see if there's an enemy there. Surreal lighting makes so that the god rays and the lighting of outside looks amazing, such as like sunsets and everything. It doesn't mess with weathers or whatnot. True Storms messes with weathers to make them look great. The rain, the snow, and thunderstorms all look fantastic. They look and sound better. That's all that True Storm's effects. So we have some real lighting to affect the sun and the sunsets and sunrises, so that they look great. Skyrim is windy. Got this because it's a required mod for some of the other mods for floral, such as landscape for grass mods. I'm pretty sure it's a required mod. Making it so that way whenever you're walking around and there's wind, you'll see the trees branches blowing in the wind, and the grass will like flow along with the wind. It makes the game look super awesome and sound great. We got improved combat music. This mod author is a musician, and what he did was he took the vanilla combat music within the game and changed it up a little bit. It's not an ad of rock music or whatever like other combat music mods. This combat music mod really makes you feel like it's a Skyrim song and everything, and they are super hype. There's like 4 different combat songs. Just like in vanilla, they're just changed up a little bit. Sound of Skyrim complete. This is 3 mods combined into one, so it's just one download. It's the Sound of Skyrim for cities, the wilds, and dungeons, adding in tons of new sounds within the game, and there are sounds that you can turn on or turn off whenever you load in as a character. I suggest you just turn them all on, because the game sounds so much more realistic with these in there. Immersive Sounds Compendium. This we got because mainly of whenever you're fighting and you're using a mace, it doesn't make that shink sound whenever you hit an enemy as if you're using a sword. Changes it up so each type of weapon makes a specific type of sound, making the gameplay, like the combat, actually feel really different, making you feel like you're in the game. We got immersive sword draw sound effects, so whenever you pull your sword out, it doesn't go shink. So that way, if you're being a sneak build, you don't make that shink sound whenever you pull out your daggers and no one notices you. It really breaks your immersion within the game if you make that big sound but no one hears you somehow. Reverb ambiance and ambiance overhaul. Whenever you're inside an area, there can be echoes. Makes this that way whenever you're talking to someone, they're not directly in your ears. They feel like they're at a distance and everything. JK Skyrim All-in-One changes all of the holds within the game. Really, the big changes are to the ones that are load-in cities, such as Solitude, Whiterun, Riften, Windhelm, Markarth. All of the ones that you have to load into the game. It does change all the other ones, but those ones we're really focused on to make them look absolutely freaking fantastic. They look like a whole new game. Breeze Home changes the Breeze Home so it doesn't look like a basic piece of crap, even if you upgrade everything. This puts in every type of crafting thing with inside, you know, tanning, smelting, the forge down in the basement. There's a bunch of different types of storage things. It looks pretty fantastic and unique. There's enchanting, alchemy, and even a staff maker upstairs and a de-enchanter. The whole thing looks great. If you buy all you have to do is buy the Breeze Home. Do not buy any of the upgrades to Breeze Home from Preventus, or else you'll mess up the mod of the Breeze Home. How's it going, chat? Sorry, in the middle of talking about the mods, and this is going on YouTube. Sorry if I don't have a huge conversation, but I do notice you. What's up? I love poo. Useless shop and interior something overhaul. This changes all of these shops and stores within Whiterun to look really unique and completely different. This is a pretty crazy awesome mod. Whenever I first saw Bellathor's General Goods store, with this mod on, it blew my mind. They look freaking fantastic. Word walls relocated. Got this because I like to do role plays where certain characters won't, you know, go into a certain like guild, such as the Dark Brotherhood, but there are word walls, shouts that are tied to the Dark Brotherhood quest line, so you can't get them unless you join the Dark Brotherhood. This takes it so that way you it'll take the word walls from those tied areas and puts them out into different areas within the game, so you can go out and get those. Got this because shouts are actually useful now with Thunderchild and a few other mods that I have that changes shouts, so that way you don't have to do Opulent Thieves Guild. If you didn't know, in vanilla, as you go through the Thieves Guild questline, it changes the look of the Thieves Guild, but I've never noticed it. And from what I've read on, reviews, they're so small in changes you can't even really notice them. This makes it so that way as you go through the Thieves Guild questline, and make the guild flourish more, it really changes the look of everything, adding in new stuff to make it look like it's a really flourishing Thieves Guild again. Ultra Dragon Priest Mask, what this does, it takes all of the stats from all of the other Dragon Priest Masks and adds it to the final one along with its enchantment, making it worth getting. That's all that does, so that's pretty great, because spending a lot of time getting all the Dragon Priest Masks and getting the final one, and all it really does is one little thing, it's kind of a pain in the butt. So now this adds all of the other Dragon Priest Masks onto this one, including the ones from the Dragonborn DLC. We got improved Spellbreaker ward, where it changes the ward on Spellbreaker from 50 to 120. I love Spellbreaker, it's my favorite shield in the game, and I felt the ward was always lackluster in any case. So this changes so it's a little bit stronger, which makes sense because as you level up, mages can do a lot of damage with their attacks, so this can block it a little bit better over time. Changes all the golds within the game to be named as septims, because that's what they're supposed to be called. Torchlight Expanded doubles the light of torches within the game, because we have that Darkness Inside mod, so that way torches actually light up an area what they should be lighting up. We got Dark Souls 3 weapons, weapon spells. What these are spells that you can use to enchant your right-handed weapon with the specific enchantment for 30 seconds, and they can be re-enchanted immediately. I thought this was a pretty cool thing that you can do if you're trying to be an arcane warrior, where you're a mage that uses enchantments to enhance your abilities as a warrior. So this was a perfect fit for that. Master Destruction adds in new spells, master spells within the game to use from a distance instead of the area of effect ones that vanilla has. They are balanced. We have Heavy Armory New Weapon Special Edition, where it adds in halberds, spiked clubs, glaives, bunch of different types of weapons that we'll look down here. Hatchets, long maces, mauls, quarterstaffs, short spears, short swords, spears, and tridents, all into the game that are, they work with a specific, other weapons, such as long maces are technically, they use Warhammer animations, and they use Warhammer-specific perks. And you can, if you're ever curious as to what type of weapon uses what things, they're all listed here, which is a great thing that the mod author did. Adds in a bunch of different types of weapons in the game that are actually, balanced. As an example, the spiked club is technically a mace. It does slightly less damage, but it weighs slightly less, and that making it swing faster. Which I love because I felt maces were always really slow. Spiked club, since it swings a little bit faster, hits a slightly less. But I love the feel of it. I love spiked clubs. They're kind of my favorite thing now. Better Shrouded Armor replaces the fucking Dark Brotherhood armor within the game with this Shrouded Armor, because I always felt the Dark Brotherhood armor looked like really tight skin, skin tight, onesie pajamas. This makes it look like a whole lot better. Keeps the enchantments exactly the same. It replaces all of the NPCs and all of the other items that you can get in the game, the Shroud Armor with this one. Fireglass Armory adds in a new weapons and armor within the game. Fireglass Armor Kind of imagine it like Stalrim, where Stalrim, if you use frost enchantments on them, they're 25% stronger. Same thing with fire glass, but with fire enchantments. You have to have the glass perk to be able to make them. There's a light and heavy version armor of it, and there's weapons of them. Black Mage armor adds in a bunch of different types of Black Mage armor sets within the game. Cloth, light armor, heavy, all that types of stuff. Thank you so much for the follow, I Love Pooh. You're awesome, love you. There is also Black Archmage armor versions added in that you can get once you complete the Colors of Winterhold quest line, where you get the key from Tolfdir. Once you stop on Kano from using the Eye of Magnus, you go upstairs. There's this little chest in the Archmage's quarters that'll have a light and heavy version of the robes that you can use, giving mages a lot more options other than to just use robes and non-armor robes and light armor to use. They can actually use heavy armor and stuff. Don't have any quest mods. We got bucklers, shields, and other armors. What this does, it adds in light armor version, heavy armor versions of every type of armor and shields within the game. So now there are light armor versions of shields called bucklers that light armor builds can use if they're trying to use one-handed shield. There are heavy armor versions of all light armors and light armor versions of all heavy armors within the game. So there's a heavy armor version of leather armor and so forth on. There's a light armor version of steel plate armor and orcish armor and so on within the game, adding in technically a bunch of new armors that are all perfectly balanced. We got Skyrim Outfitters backpacks. There are 4 different types of backpacks. There is the light version, the medium, the large, and the giant version, and you just upgrade each one into the next one. Giant version is 100 extra carry weight, and the light version is 25, so each one gives you 25 more. We got Cloaks of Skyrim, adds in a bunch of different types of cloaks within the game. As an example, there's some cloaks up in High Hrothgard called the Greybeard's cloak that has a special enchantment and special look of it. Bunch of those types of cloaks are strewn throughout the game, all over the place. Guards are wearing cloaks, some of them, all throughout Skyrim, people are wearing cloaks and everything, making it look a little bit more realistic because cloaks are kind of necessary, and making everything look cool. All the cloaks are enchantable, by the way. Depending on what type of cloak they are, will depend on what type of enchantment they can have. We have wearable lanterns. You can wear lanterns on your belt now, so that way instead of just carrying a torch or using candlelight, you have another form of lighting that you don't have to hold or use magic to use, so that way you can focus on fighting and exploring through a dungeon. You can activate it so that way it has to use fuel, lantern oil fuel, or use pollen, because you can use a torch bug as the source of light as well. Left-hand rings. I always felt it was really dumb that you can only use one ring in Skyrim, even though you had like 10 fingers. But what this does, it allows you to wear a ring on your left hand. There are actual left-hand rings. It'll say silver ring left hand. So you can't use 2 silver rings. You have to use a silver ring and then a silver ring left hand. We got soul gems glow in full. So if they're empty, they're going to have that green tint to it. If they are full, they'll have a pinkish tint to it. So that way you can tell the difference between the two. Also, it makes the soul gems actually look really fantastic. It changes up the colors of them. Mercy Citizens AI overhaul. Citizens are smart. They'll run away if they're getting attacked. And they are smarter just in general and everything. They'll go out and buy certain things from other shops to have for themselves and whatnot. It adds a whole bunch of different stuff that I can't even begin to describe because it'll take too long to do. Just making the AI overall smarter. We got immersive patrols. You'd expect that through the Civil War and, you know, vampire attacks and everything, you'd run into patrols of certain factions, like Dawn Guard, the Stormcloaks, the Imperials, the Thalmor. They're strewn throughout all over Skyrim. You'll randomly run into them, and if they do encounter an opposite force, such as Stormcloaks will run into Thalmor, they'll fight each other. If the Stormcloaks run into Imperials, they'll fight each other. Stormcloaks are kind of fucked because they fight almost everything, every other type of patrol. I just realized. Better combat AI. AI are a hell of a lot smarter. They'll fight together and coordinated and everything. If there is a sword and shield NPC, he will run up to you and keep you back away from an archer, so that way the archer can shoot at you from a distance. Archers won't charge at you. If you are low health, they'll be more aggressive and charge up at you. They'll have different types of fight styles. They'll know how to block more often and use power attacks when they need to. They'll look for openings and everything. They're super smart, making combat a lot more difficult. Sirio's Enhanced Dragons. What this does is, as you kill dragons, you'll gain a level of hate from the dragons, giving them abilities to use on you. As you see onto the right side of there, it says level 1 through 10, and if they get to level 10, it's not just using Alduin's Fire abilities as well, making fighting a lot more difficult. You can use an ability called Apologize, which will make use an ability called Apologize, where you can release one of the dragon souls and you'll lose some hate. Everyone's Grudge, which you'll be able to see what hate level dragons have for you, and Karthus' Contempt, calling hateful dragons to you. You cannot use that shout to call hateful dragons to you to farm dragon souls, because any hateful dragons there are, they do not give you a dragon soul. You can farm that for loot, but you can't use that to farm dragon souls. Wanted to make that clear. Alternate start, everybody knows what this is. Whenever you create a new character, you can choose a bunch of different types of starts instead of just the vanilla wagon one. We have the Power of the Dragonborn. As you collect dragon souls on increments of 5, you'll get increased health, magic, and stamina by 10, and a shout cooldown by 5%. So at 50 plus dragon souls, you have a health, magic, and stamina increased by 100, and your shouts cooldown will have a 50% reduction. This is pretty difficult to get up to 50, but this is a pretty awesome thing to add in, making it so that shouts are useful. The Fire Within, similar thing. As the Power of the Dragonborn, these are collaborative. Same thing as the Power of the Dragonborn, they're collaborative mods. This one increases the potency of your shouts as you get more souls. Same thing as the other one, increments of 5. With all 50, as an example, the Fire Breath shout will start at will start at 100 damage. With 50 souls, it'll be 200 damage. But imagine this, with 200 damage from all the 50 souls, plus 200% more from the Prayer to Kind from Thunderchild, making it, oh god, like 500 damage, and then you can have an extra 100 damage, 100% more from the Ordinator mod, because in the speech skill tree, you can have a perk that'll increase your shout's potency by 1% per point of speech skill. So you can technically have 100 speech skill, and then have 100% even more. So you'll technically have in total 300%, making it so you do like 600 damage with a Fire Breath attack, which is pretty insane. So shouts are an actual viable build with these 3 mods. We have Haste, changing a bunch of things within the game. The main ones is Smelting and Tanning will now level your smithing. Cooking will level your alchemy. Merchants will not die to vampire attacks and everything, because they won't happen within towns. or the holds rather. Removes the spin dance that enemies will do. Changes the distance that enemies can see you. Changes the prices of a bunch of things within the game, such as like the carriage rides. You can make lockpicks at the forge and smelt them into iron ingots. Changes the weight of things, such as ore now weigh 3 pounds, and ingots to 3 pounds. Leather is changed from 2 to 1, and 4 strips from 0.1 to 0.25, so they weigh the same, which makes sense. We got no enchantment restrictions, which is any armor enchantment you want to put onto, you can put onto whatever type of armor you want, such as boots. In vanilla, all you could do on there is put muffle, sneak increase, stamina, one-handed and two-handed increases. Now you can put whatever you want onto boots and every other armor piece. You cannot put weapon enchantments and armor stuff, you know, it wouldn't make sense. Immersive upgrade leveled items. What this is what this means is if you go and get Chill Rend at level 2 and you are now level 30 something, but you want to use Chill Rend but the enchantment is super weak, you can go to the Skyforge in Whiterun and pray to the Daedra and the Divines to increase the potency of the enchantment by giving offerings. And this works with every type of leveled item within the game, which is all 16 of them. Skyforge and get them the increased enchantment. You have to be the appropriate level to increase it. You can't get Chill Rend at level 1 and increase it to the level 42 enchantment type. You have to be level 42 to get it to that. And these upgrades will not show unless you're at the required level and with the weapon at a lower level, and you have to have the items. I don't think you have to have the items. I think you just have to have a higher level than the item that you have. Such as Chill Rend, if you got it at level 10, you have to be like level 30, and then it'll show you to upgrade it up to the level 30 enchantment style. Master Spells and Scrolls. This makes it so that way, whenever you're using Master Spells and Scrolls from the vanilla game, it doesn't take 5 seconds to activate them. It takes like 3 seconds now, cutting it down. So that way you don't spend an eternity using your spell and get killed because your enemies are running into you because they're area effect spells. We have Populated Dungeons, Caves, and Ruins. Increases the population of all enemies within dungeons, caves, and ruins. Also, the level of the enemies are increased. Do not activate this mod until you reach level 20 or 25. You will not be able to do anything below that level. You'll be way too weak. This is the same thing, but with bandits, so that way it covers all enemies within the game. Same thing, increases the population and the levels of the enemies. For all bandits within the game, don't activate these two mods until you are level 20 or 25, unless you want to have a really hard time fighting. Amazing follower tweaks, changes so many different types of things for the followers. I can't list them, and I don't want to spend the time. If you're really interested in it, go ahead and check it out for yourself. There's just too much to talk about. Realistic conversations. NPCs will talk to each other, so that way you can walk by and hear about quests and everything without having to directly talk to people. Makes the game feel more real, because, you know, people aren't just only talking to you, they'll talk to each other. Convenient horses adds a whole bunch of different things that you can do with your horse, such as have a whistle and a horn call to them. You can craft equipment and everything. You can put items within their inventory. You can have better mounted combat. You can run into things with your horse whenever you have one of your weapons pulled and stumble them. You can harvest ingredients on top of a horse. You can interact with people on top of a horse, and you can level up your horse. The health, the stamina, or the carrying capacity. Hardcore dragons. What this does is it increases the health of all dragons by 2.5, and any weak ones will get a 3.33 increase. And Papa Mario, which I'm guessing is Alduin, his health is increased by 16.66%, which is crazy. So it makes dragons way more difficult, which is what they should be. Dragons will tend to land more often, so they're not flying for 30 minutes and you're waiting for them to land. They have a slower rotation speed, so that way they don't whip them around whenever you turn around and get to their, their tail. They have increased resistance from 50% to 75% when fighting NPCs. That's pretty much it for that one. Splendor Dragon variants, what this does, it takes all of the different types of skin and textures from vanilla and mixes them all up in a pool to make it so that there's tons of new 784 different types of dragons within the game. So instead of the vanilla 14, there's also the names will indicate their strength. So young, regular dragon, aged, elder, ancient, revered, legendary. I have fought a revered frost dragon. It took me a while to beat him. He had a ridiculous amount of health. He did super amount of damage. And it was a real fight, which makes sense. Dragons are supposed to be hard. We have legendary creatures, adds in creatures within the game. Not a bunch, but specifically 8, I'm pretty sure. Not randomly, but into specific areas within the game where you can find them, fight them, get some cool loot from them. Just adds a little bit of fun within the game. XP32 Maximus Skeleton plus Realistic Ragdoll. This is a must for anybody. Fixes a whole bunch of different types of things within the game just by tweaking a few things, so that way whenever you kill an enemy, they do a realistic fall and whatnot. Divine Skins and Bodies changes the skins for all NPCs within the game to make them all look a lot better, so they don't look absolutely terrible from before. TD18 lore-friendly hairs adds in new hairs to the game that you can use that look great along with the Divine Skins. Superior lore-friendly hair changes the look of all the vanilla hairs within the game to look a little bit better. We got natural eyes, changing the eyes. We have original sleeving, giving sleeves to all armors and whatnot. Old Kingdom armor overhaul and Old Kingdom Sling Skyrim add-on. You want these 3 to be in this exact way. You want the original sleeving, then Old Kingdom armor overhaul, and then Old Kingdom Sling Skyrim add-on. This Sling Skyrim add-on adds in a few things that that aren't added by the original Sling Skyrim. Old Kingdom armor overhaul changes all armors within the game that are vanilla to make them look better, and it has uniques for armors as well. So the has uniques in the armors as well, so that the armors look great. Any unique ones, such as General Tullis' armor, or Jarl Ulfric's armor, and other ones. Weapon overhaul and weapon overhaul USEP patch. USEP patch just fixes a few things. This one just fixes a few things that USEP patch will fuck up. Weapon overhaul is the same thing as the armor overhaul. Changes all weapons within the game to look a whole lot better, and has uniques involved in this one too, so that way all unique weapons look absolutely fantastic and special. We have improved closed-faced helmets, which opens up the eyes and the faces and the mouths for all the helmets within the game that are vanilla, so that way they look a whole lot better. Belt fastened quivers. Got this one because the backpack that we have up above, if you had the regular quiver in, it would be inside the backpack. This will now be put below it, making it look a whole lot better. Add-on spin performance changes a whole bunch of textures within the game. As you can see to the right side, a bunch of small items that really just change the look of the entire Skyrim to make it look a whole lot better. Graphics pack, ridiculous amount of things within the game to look a whole lot better. As you can see, dungeons, that's right there, the cities and architecture. Graphic pack assets 1 and 2, you definitely need to have these. All three of these, the graphics pack assets, graphics pack assets 2 are all, you should have all of them, and all of them together will add up to about 1 gigabyte, but they're absolutely worth it. Absolutely worth it. Skyland, a landscape texture, changes all of the landscapes within Skyrim to look absolutely better. Skyland Towns and Villages does the same thing as Skyland, but it fixes the towns and villages areas within the game. Skyrim Dirt Roads gets rid of all the cobblestones within the game and changes so that they're dirt roads. Skyrim LODs, what this does is whenever you're in Whiterun and you're looking out to an area that hasn't been rendered and you see that the area, like the ground, is kind of a sand color, changes it so that way it's not that sand color and it looks a little bit like the area should be from a distance, making it look that doesn't pull you out of the immersive feel of the game. And I've been throwing around immersive, a little bit in this video, and I'm sorry if you don't know what it is. What it means is when you're playing a game, you're not playing a game. Immersion makes you feel like you are in the game itself, like you are the character, not that you're playing the character. That's what that means. Realistic Water 2 changes all the water effects within the game and the sounds to make them look and sound a whole lot better. Divine Textures Creatures Pack changes all the looks of all the creatures within the game except for wolves and dogs, which isn't that big a deal, but everything else is great. Dramatic Alduin got this so that way Alduin looks absolutely terrifying with a little bit of red all around him. We got Radiant Unique Potions, changes all the potions and poisons within the game to have a glowing effect and look absolutely great. Quality World Map, Vivid Weathers, makes the world map look absolutely great and so much better than the vanilla one. Enhanced Blood Textures, instead of looking like it's a bunch of crayon drawn blood, it looks like real blood. It looks great. Voltage by SRWO changes the color of lightning within the game, changes the textures, and puts more particles from sparks and everything within the game, making them look absolutely fantastic. Ultimate HD Fire Effects, same thing what Voltage does, but just for fire. Fire looks great. Deadly Spell Impacts changes the what looks like whenever spells hit the ground or area. Instead of looking absolutely awful, looks more realistic of what they should look like. Apocalypse Ordinator Compatibility Patch. If you have Apocalypse and Ordinator, you want to use this, so that way all the spells from Apocalypse are being used, like all the perks will affect those spells. Some of them aren't affected without this patch. TESG Load Screen Replacer, SSE, replaces all the load screen items with screenshots from within the game that have been painted by a painter. So someone went and took a whole bunch of screenshots in the game, and a painter went and painted out those screenshots, and that's what replaces this. They all look absolutely fantastic. There's 205 of them. I have not seen them all, and they are super great. Font Replacer Endural changes the font of the game. I like this one because in the parentheses there, it says Dumbledore, and I love Harry Potter. There's a bunch of different font replacers in the game. You just have to find whatever one you want. It doesn't really affect anything in your load order, but it changes the game, really. It does. Just a simple change in font. Skyrim merchants will now have 10,000 gold instead of like 1,000 or 750. The only one not affected by this is Tonilia in the Ragged Flagon. Weightless Potions and Poisons does as the name says. Star 50% more gold. You'll find 50% more gold in the game. There is a double 2 times more gold and 3 times more gold. I found 50% was the best one of the 3 of them. Not as OP. Dragons regen 0.1% of their health over time through combat and everything. Makes it so that dragons are even a little bit more difficult, which I want. Stronger bosses of Skyrim. Alduin, Marak, and Harkon are now able to go up to the level of 250. From what I understand is they stay on whatever level you are, but they can max out at 250. Alduin, Marak, and Harkon could only max out a certain level, but you could go beyond that level. So now they can get up to a way higher level is what my understanding is. I have not fought any of them yet. If they are 250 permanently, that's kind of fucked, and I will be getting rid of this mod. Hopefully it works the other way that I said, where it stays with your level, and then it can max out at 250. JK Skyrim Thunderchild patch. There's this thing in Dawnstar that Thunderchild adds in one of the shrines, and it's overwritten by JK Skyrim, so this fixes it so that way it's not overwritten, it's moved somewhere else. People are strangers. Whenever you walk up to someone, it doesn't just tell you their name, it has a question mark. If you want to learn their name, you have to talk to them. No auto-aim. Whenever you're aiming, it won't shoot the arrow directly at the enemy, even if you're aiming slightly in front of them, trying to hit them as they move forward. Now the arrow will go exactly where you're aiming. Stay arrows stay. So now instead of having 15 arrows stay within, the game, wherever, there can be 50 arrows laying around on the ground or in, the wall or something like that. 25 arrows can stay in an anchor instead of just 3, so that way you can make a pin cushion. And they'll stay there for 2.5 real-time minutes instead of the normal 10 seconds. You have 50% chance to pick up arrows instead of the 33% chance now. Smoke-free loading screens. Gets rid of the smoke in the loading screens. TLS FPS Ultimate gets rid of a bunch of the vampire draining effects within the game, such as the leaves falling and other stuff, so that way it increases your FPS, which you kind of need when you're playing this game with all these mods and everything, because the mods do hinder the FPS a little bit, so this increases it a little bit more. And then the insignificant object remover. If you've ever seen a bunch of those rocks that are on the ground, you can't interact with them or anything. Those are just skins that are loaded into the game that inhibit your FPS. So it gets rid of those, so it just won't load them. These 2 FPS with all the mods that I have, it definitely does not feel like I have huge frame drops anymore. It feels like it stays at a constant 30 to 25 frames, which that's where it is for Skyrim Special Edition on the Xbox One. New guard armors. This is the last one. Changes all the guard armors in the game to have that type of a guard armor in that below picture. Each hold has their own specific design on it, but they all look absolutely fantastic. This is great in one specific way because Stormcloaks now look like they have a, uniform instead of looking just like a bunch of guards running around. So that is every single mod that we have. Spent a lot of time talking about that. It's been about an hour long. Sorry it took so long. Try to went through all of them. We have like 120 some mods. If you have any questions, please hit me up on Twitter at PeroxidePick. Or if you like this video and any of my other content, please hit the subscribe button, that like button, and the bell, so that way whenever I'm uploading new videos. Thank you guys. Love you guys. You're awesome. Have a nice day.